In The Grapes of Wrath, John Steinbeck explores a myriad of themes, but none more haunting than the existential fragmentation of the human spirit. In this novel, the obsession with profit forces banks, companies, and entire institutions to commodify human beings. People are no longer ends in themselves, they're turned into means of production. This devastation plays out in the Jode family, but also in the land itself. Steinbeck shows this dehumanization through the transformation of the land, from a lively, untamed force into a neutered, obedient machine. And as the land is stripped of its vitality, something fractures in the people too. The family unit begins to dissolve. The value system of each person becomes unstable. We move from a shared concern into isolated survival, where once there was a joy of family and community, now there is a distance, necessity, and cold infatuation with material promises. This tension, the pull between the human and the mechanical, is personified most vividly in Muley Graves, the ghost of the land. Now, if you've read the novel, you might remember Graves as a simple expositional device. He's there to fill a backstory for Tom, a neighbor, a relic, that's it. But look closer. Muley isn't just a narrative tool. He's something deeper. He's an existential symbol, a representation of despair, of lonesomeness, of a man caught in the collapse of meaning. And paradoxically, he might be the novel's unspoken hero. He shows up early in the story. Tom Jode, fresh out of prison, returns home, only to find it abandoned. The house that once gave him life is now rotting in silence. He assumes the worst. Maybe they're dead. Maybe everything is gone. But then, out of the land emerges a man, Muley, an old friend, a neighbor, wearing rags, holding dead squirrels. He steps forward from the wilderness like some dusty John the Baptist. He tells Tom what happened. The banks sent tractors. They rolled straight through the land, flattening homes, displacing families. Everyone left. Everyone except Muley. Because to him, this wasn't just land. It was something sacred. It was where he was born, where his father was buried, where his whole life had meaning. The land wasn't property, it was life itself. And here's where it shifts. Muley doesn't just recount the past, he foreshadows the future. He's one of the most quietly compelling characters in the novel. He's kind, but intense. Predictable, but erratic. You know he won't leave, but you don't know if he'll survive. He lives in constant tension. He knows the life he's clinging to is gone, but he can't move forward. He can't let go. The others call it progress, but to him, it's erasure. This creates a kind of existential fragmentation. A once feared hunter becomes a hiding weasel. A stoic pragmatist becomes paralyzed, unable to act. What was once a home becomes a prison. The most tragic part? Muley might be doing the right thing. By refusing to leave, he's preserving something sacred. If everyone had done what Muley did, maybe the land would still belong to those who worked it. Maybe something would have changed. Muley, in a way, acts as a Kantian archetype, as if everyone had done what he did, perhaps the land would have survived. Perhaps people wouldn't have had to leave it. But the problem isn't that he stayed. The problem is that he stayed alone. And when you stand alone, even righteousness starts to look like madness. At one point, he turns to Tom and Casey and asks, "Am I touched?" Meaning, am I crazy? And Casey, the preacher, replies, "No, not touched. You're lonely." That line lingers, because later, in a jail cell, we see it echo again. One prisoner protests the food. Alone, he's dismissed, just another lunatic. But when others join in, the system has to listen. Solidarity gives meaning. Without it, you're just yelling into silence. Muley is ragged, homeless, shaken. But it's not because he's weak. It's because he carried the whole burden alone. He is the ghost of the land. He's the last man standing, and the first to break. And still, he is necessary, not because he wins, but because he reminds us of what was lost, what mattered, and what, if forgotten, will haunt us all. Muley Graves, he's the kind of character that reminds us that being a hero is not always pretty, and in fact, it's mostly not pretty. We often look at revolutionaries with admiration, and of course, it is admirable, but Steinbeck shows us what revolution looks like when nobody joins in, and it is best personified in The Ghost of the Land, Muley Graves. Thank you very much for watching. If you guys have any comments, please leave them down below. I don't really know who this video would be for. This video is so niche, but maybe you have like a high school report or something, and I guarantee you that none of your classmates are going to be doing a paper on Muley Graves. Everyone's going to be talking about Casey or Tom or Ma or Pa, or maybe even the grandfather or the banks, but Muley Graves is often unspoken, and I think that there's a lot of depth to him. But anyway, thank you for watching. Until next time.